What's up guys, G's Reviews here, and it's time for a review of Charli XCX's latest record, Brat. Brat feels like a real statement among Charli's discography. In 2016, she released her Vroom Vroom EP, an energetic, bubblegum-based project that would set the tone for the rest of her releases because beforehand, a lot of her stuff were more in the rock hemisphere. This EP had some decent ideas, but overall, I didn't get much out of it. It was kind of annoying and it kind of gave me a headache. Then in 2017, she released a couple of mixtapes, which I thought were really good, really earwormy, just super catchy. This is partially thanks to her collaborative team of producers, which includes the late and great Sophie. How I'm Feeling Now was her 2020 album, which fully refined the sound that she'd been working so hard on making all these years. This is easily one of my favourite hyperpop albums of all time. Her previous album, Crash, was unlike anything she'd released before. It was super tight, super polished, this kind of dance pop kind of sound, and honestly a lot of people hate on her for this album, but I can't help but admire the bold move to change up the style. With her newest album, Brat shows a return to her production team alongside new additions, and with them comes a signal for nightclubs to reopen immediately. However, with a further expansion in production and this new Brat aesthetic you've got going on, you can really find a lot of introspection on this project. In fact, I look at this album's cover and I look at the producers on here, and I can't help but feel that this is a modern day equivalent of Yeezus. Not only was Kanye West's 2013 album very loud, very abrasive, very in your face and very trashy, but it also had its very vulnerable moments. One of the first singles to drop for this album was Von Dutch, which honestly I think a lot of people hated when it first came out, but now that I listen back to it, it's super sassy and it has so much personality. The production on this album is unreal, for example the piano breakdown on the second half of Mean Girls, and the orchestral intro to Everything is Romantic. Alongside the production, this album is super versatile. Even the last two tracks are completely different from each other. From Charli's own desires to have a family on I Think About It All the Time, to the idea of having a never-ending cycle of partying on 365. And on that note, 365 is an epic outro. It's basically a coked up, crazy, dark version of the album's intro 360. I feel like Club Classics is a very underrated track that doesn't get really enough praise. I think this is really the song that defines the album for its whole aesthetic. You have the vocals, you have the production, you have that dirty bass. Everything about it is just epic. Not to mention, this album is super concise. Somehow she manages to fit so much quality content into only a short 41 minutes. Tracks such as Symphony is a Knife and Girl So Confusing are riddled with deep introspection behind the hard-hitting booms. On these tracks, she often compares herself to other celebrities, feeling as though they're better than her. And in this sense, it's a pretty interesting and intricate project. Other vulnerable tracks include So I, which is really Charli's mourning track for her friend, collaborator, and iconic musician Sophie, which she uses lyrics from her track It's Okay to Cry. And honestly, I feel like this is such a perfect tribute album to Sophie in terms of what she represented and what she was. She would have most definitely enjoyed the industrial elements of this album as well. So like I said before, this album is super versatile. These sad tracks really don't stop the flow of the more upbeat songs, such as Talk Talk, which features a bassy beat perfect for a dance floor. I think it's pretty safe to say that Charli probably considers Britney Spears as the blood of her sound. However, it's really with this album where Charli manages to bridge the gap between her influences and her own sound. Brat is about a certain type of person, someone who is trashy, successful, probably has a very messed up personal life. Whether this accurately describes Charli as a person, I don't actually know, nor do I think it really matters. But somehow she manages to glamorize this tastelessness that Brat has. When I look at this album, I see a representation of the pop scene in the late 90s to the early 2000s. Artists such as Britney Spears were viewed as trashy singers that had real no artistic value, but in reality she was literally a child when she had her first breakout. Britney, among other young singers in this period during pop, experienced so many awful things that were very exploited, very laughed at, to the point that these artists were having legitimate mental breakdowns. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that this album is a celebration of tastelessness. It has this radical optimism towards pop that I haven't really seen in decades. So yeah, I don't think this is just an album. I think this is an album that has something to say, and Charli expertly does this in a super catchy and super confident way. Overall, Brat is authentic, and I think it's safe to say that this is pretty much the album of 2024 summer. It's relentlessly fun, relentlessly consistent. It fits very comfortably within Charli's expansive discography, as well as the music scene. I'm going to give this album a 9 out of 10. But what did you guys think of this album? What should I review next? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.